continuing in the Maimer. Right, so the Nekuda, no, this didn't. The Nekuda of the Maimer so far is, Pasuk says, Yikonef merecha. So when Mashiach will come, no longer will your teacher be veiled, covered. He explained that this Alter Rebbe's Maimer. Merecha goes means your guide or your teacher, your instructor. What are the guides of a person? His mind and his heart. So he explains that no longer will the mind and heart have to be covered. Covered by what? So the covering of the levushim, the garments, the spiritual garments of machshava dibur ma'aseh. So now in Zman HaGolos, we have to be covered by machshava dibur ma'aseh. Why? Because in Zman HaGolos, halavai beinini, and we don't transform our inner desires at all. So at best, and that's the whole avodah, the avodah is behavioral. Maaseh, dibur, and machshava. As explained, the two examples of a person can say words, a fool can say clever words, and a person of destructive or bad midas can act kindly, and an ugly person dressed in clothes can be transformed. So too, we become now transformed only externally. But then, when Mashiach will come, that's what the Pasuk is saying, V'lo Yikonef eid merech. No longer will we have to conceal the driving forces of the person, for they may not be refined and elevated. Then they will be. The intellect and the emotions will be, in the words of the Alter Rebbe, berurim, refined. Yeah? That's a summary. That's what the Alter Rebbe is like. What?
Similar to Shlach.
Yeah, Shlach is based on this. Veishlach Yeshua. Yeah. So the Alter Rebbe, the Rebbe explains, I just kind of did, that then when Mashiach will come, the Alter Rebbe is saying, will be the refinement of the emotions and the intellect, Keni, Knizi, and Kadmoini, and therefore no longer will we need them to be veiled or screened by behavior, for the very drives themselves will be directed only exclusively to Hashem. The Rebbe explained why he brought two Mishalim. We finished that paragraph, right? He brought two Mishalim, one of a fool that speaks wisely, and the other of a person with bad midas who can behave nicely, because this addresses the two meirecha, the two drives, the intellect and the seichel.
Why do we say it has to be these days before Mashiach?
Pardon?
Why do we say that you said the words, it has to be, you have to have it covered? Why do we have to have it covered?
Because our raw midas and our raw intellect is selfish, not transformed. The Beinani is only Halavai Beinani is only behaviorally. Our desires, our weaknesses, like the Rasha, if we're not a Rasha already. The difference between the Beinani and the Rasha again is that the Beinani has summoned the conviction not to follow the dictates of his mind, not to follow the dictates of his heart. Doesn't follow it, but he's pulled and attracted to, just like the Rasha is, to every sin in the book, depending on his nature. So all we can do is Yikonef, cover it up, and behave like a Jew. If you don't feel Jewish, act Jewish. Don't feel godly, act godly. Do the mitzvahs, say what you're supposed to say. Use your power of speech the way you're supposed to. And in terms of machshava, as explained yesterday, you can't help the impulse, but to consciously choose to think about something that is unholy, you have the choice. Now comes the Chiddush and Leis Dalet. This is similar to what Yitzhak says in the Maimer that Chaim just referenced. Veishlach Yeshua Tavshin Chav Chesed, if I'm not mistaken, 1968. Let's go. Is that Kolosein? Now, the garments don't just cover; they enhance the person. They enhance. Clothes maketh the man. There is truth to that statement. I think Havdalah is by Shakespeare. There's truth to that. L'chura, it would appear it's only external, but it's more than that. Big news now that the levushim, the garments, do affect a beauty, which means a refinement, even in the keiches pnimiyim, the conscious faculties, the inner faculties that define a person. What defines a person? What's doing in his head, what's doing in his heart, his mind and heart. How so? Because of the mile of levushim. The question is, what do you mean mile? They're external. A person doesn't need garments. What does he need clothing for? He doesn't need clothing in the privacy of his own bedroom. He needs clothing to engage the world, either people or weather. But in theory, if there's no one around, he needs clothing. It's only for purposes of engagement. Likewise, machshava dibur u'maisa. Does a person need maisa if there's no world outside of him to act? Does a person need dibur if there's no one to talk to? And even machshava, see, machshava is much more subtle. We often confuse, or we tend to confuse machshava with intellect. It is not intellect. Machshava, a good way to describe machshava is like an inner office memo. Pure intellect is machshava is language. Machshava is a certain language. Pure seichel is higher than language. Now, I'm not sure about the next thing I'm going to say, but I'm pretty sure it is so. I can't say research this in Chassidus and Kabbalah, but you're welcome to. And that is, I don't think that the nefesh, the neshama, the maila, for sure there's no maisa, there's no action, it goes without saying. But there's no dibur and machshava either. It's a transparent world where there's no need to communicate. When you are thinking, you are communicating to your external self. What is going on in your mind? That's what you're doing. It's an internal communication. It's a speech of kind, of sorts, but internal. And Lamaila, there's no need to communicate. It's instant. What the neshama feels and so on and understands, it is. It doesn't have to be communicated. Even though there is song and there's shira and these things, but not in the communication, certainly in the higher worlds, that we know it. Because communication implies a barrier. You don't know what's inside me till I tell you. There's no barrier, Lamaila. It's all transparent, all translucent. What a neshama feels, and a neshama understands, and it's naturally expressed. So clearly, that's for sure. This is without doubt. The way we have machshava and dibur and maisa down here, of course, doesn't exist up there. But it's also very clear that you need machshava, dibur, and maisa to communicate to something that does not know otherwise what I feel and what I understand. And that's true of this world with its concealment. It's not true l'mayla. And the higher you go, the less it is. We might say, like, it's like this. They use a soldier. They enlist in the army. So they issue him his uniform. Before he's in the army, you don't need this uniform. We're learning in the previous line that tzava, we are God's soldiers. There's no soldiers l'mayla. The tzava is down here, and down here we get the uniform. He goes on to explain. We're going to add another dimension to this in a moment. But he just made a statement that there's the mile of the levushim. What does it mean in avodah? It's the thought, speech, and action of shel taryag mitzvah satayra. The thought, speech, and action of the mitzvahs shegod the malasim beyoser, which are very great. Like explains in Tanya, Perek Dalet of Tanya, that the levushim, he says that clearly, are higher than the soul itself, rooted in the etzem. When we say higher than the soul, we mean the conscious soul. Rooted in the etzem hanefesh, higher than seichel and midas, which is why, this is not in Tanya, this is elsewhere. Well, when you speak something, as we've explained many times, and you have a feeling or an idea, and you express it in words, all of a sudden the feeling intensifies, and you understand the idea deeper. Why you just put it in words? Because words are rooted in etzem hanefesh. Koach hadibur is rooted, and likewise machshava and maisa is rooted in etzem hanefesh, deep in the actual seichel and midas. So when you engage in the words or the action, you cause from the etzem hanefesh a whole surge of energy that the seichel and midas become transformed. Right? As we've explained many times, you know from your own experience. You put it in words, it's transformed. Now, just to add, what's the beer taken? What is the biotake? Whole Hanat is built on this. That the words oisius are rooted in etzem hanefesh deeper than seichel amidus. So there's many answers and many dimensions to understanding this paradox. One is, it's the same paradox that koyach hagvul is rooted deep in atzmos in koyach hablikvul. Gvura is rooted deeper than chesed, even though in the hierarchy it's chesed, then gvura, reveal, contain. But the power of containment is rooted deeper than the power of revelation. As we all know, what takes more effort? What takes more effort? You're feeling a certain feeling, to express it or to contain it? What's the answer? To contain it. As the Mishnah says, Ezel Gibber, what's the true Gevurah? HaKoivish, to contain one's inclination. That takes more energy to contain yourself than to express yourself. So too, to take a feeling and to take an idea and contain it in the kalim of words, to put it into words, and to put it into or thought, to think it through, and express it in a simple act, even though on the one hand you're being makbelit, but the koyach to be makbelit is rooted and deeper than nefesh, than the actual seichel, the expression of seichel mitzvahs, which are natural to the nefesh. That's one level of understanding this paradox of why the lavushim are rooted in the etzem, in the nefesh, or they hide in the nefesh. By nefesh we mean seichel mitzvahs. I want to add another dimension, and it's related. What's the point? The point of action, the point of dibur, is to connect to the world outside of you. So, simply stated, the ability for a person to have a relationship with something other, to go beyond self, comes from the deepest part of the etzem nefesh, because seichel and midas is the ego. That's all about me. When you're communicating, there's some level of transcendence of ego. It's connecting to somebody else. Now you can connect in a corruptive way, in a selfish way. That can also be exploited negatively. But the etzem idea, the etzem, fact that here's somebody else that you can give to, going outside of self, that is rooted deeper than the ego of the nefesh, which is locked in self, and comes from the etzem nefesh, which is selfless, which allows therefore for a connection, a communication, and an effect on the world outside of me. Is that kind of clear?
We had something similar to this in Chai Sarah, with the eyes, with the eyes and the mouth, all the kelim that has to do with outside.
Yeah, the kelim that have to do with outside. There, dafke lies the etzem of the person, the true essence, which allows for going beyond the self. Anyway, this is a whole subject. Let's read it inside the Maimer. But he was quoting from Tanya. The neshama comes down. The neshama comes down to the world to connect to Hashem. How do you connect to Hashem? To doing mitzvahs. So doing mitzvahs, the nefesh, the neshama goes totally beyond itself. What's the self? The self is like that tzilis or bria, ishtalshalus. When doing the mitzvahs, the neshama connects to atzmos. The only way to connect is through do that act, say these words. So it's these garments of Torah mitzvahs that take the neshama beyond self and connect it to the very essence of Hashem. It's the same idea. Now he has like this. Now he wants to bring out the yofi dimension. The yofi dimension means that it enhances even the seichel midas, the inner self, the ego of the person. The Gemara says a person should do Torah mitzvahs even not for the sake of heaven, because eventually he'll do it lishma. He goes in the seish, but lishma, he'll come to lishma. Haino, leidak boyfriend shal mitzvah nashim b'lemod. That we're saying not only are we encouraging a person to do mitzvahs by routine, mitzvahs and nashim b'lemod. That's a quote from a pasuk. It means a routine. just learned and acquired, passed down tradition. You're doing it not just routinely, but you're doing it with a negative, you're having a wrong intention. The lowest level of ill intention, lekanta means many things. It means basically to prove your point, to show your knowledge, or to disprove the other guy. There's many meanings of lekanta. So that's like the lowest level of learning is to use it to put the other guy down. Win the argument. You're the Talmud Chacham. Even so, Chazal are telling us you should learn Torah like this because the Pel Mamish, the Levushim you're doing, the garment is there. Notwithstanding the person's matzav, his inner matzav and his motivation, his agenda, but he's doing the mitzvah now. The nefesh is enclosed in the garments of Torah mitzvahs. Now the inner motivation is all wrong, but the garment is a garment. Therefore, we are obligated. If someone's doing a mitzvah, we have to stand up. He may be a poor, unrefined and ignorant. Because if he's doing the mitzvah, he's connecting. Since he's doing the mitzvah, he's saying the words, he's doing the act. So Hashem now is enveloped him and actually dwelling, he says, in him at that moment. And therefore you've got to stand in respect for the connection to the Eibishter, which he is now effecting. Now comes the big news. He's not just wrapped in it externally. Because of the mile of the garments, he changes him. It changes him. His inner self becomes changed. Why? Because since the Machshav Dibur Maisa draws on the Etzem HaNefesh, which is pure, so if you're drawing on that, it has to have an effect on the conscious self, on the ego as well. Not the same as the tzaddik who works in himself and transforms himself, etc. But just by doing mitzvahs constantly, a certain refinement has to happen even internally. Even if you never actually worked on the agenda, and the whole time you're doing it just for the wrong agenda, but the fact that you're learning Torah and you're connecting to the Eibishter, and you're unlocking your etzem on the neshama, it has to have an effect. And he goes on to say, that's what the end of the quote we brought before. From within the agenda, he'll come to do lishma. Why? Because b'pnimius he wants to, and the etzem hanefesh is connected. And by doing Torah mitzvahs, you draw on the etzem hanefesh, so that toich, that pnimius will change in subtle ways, at least, even our inner consciousness. So
when you say b'pnimius, you're talking deeper than the koiches, the pnimim.
The etzem. Yeah, okay. The Gemara says, a person, Hashem says, it's a very big thing. Hashem says, forsake me, but learn my Torah. The fee, because Hashem, the luminary that's found, that's the source, the etzem, that's found, that is in Torah, which means the connection to Atzmos, to Hashem, will bring him back, will bring you back. So you're forsaking me, and your agenda is all wrong. You're not doing. But if you learn Torah, you're learning it. In Torah is me. It's my Torah, the Moir, and that eventually will bring the person back to good.
Even if it's good.
Right. I just said that. And he adds now this dik mitoich. Shegam kasher isek between the mitzvahs. Can you pass me the mitzvah begoli? Even if his involvement in a conscious way, you're shalei lishma, give me. Come on, nonetheless, give me shal Torah mitzvahs. Since what are you doing? You're doing Torah mitzvahs. This is the Eibishter's will. This is the Eibishter himself, the Anoichi. The inner truth of it all along was lishma. It's at your etzem hanefesh. The inner, true inner, the etzem will work its way out, and eventually work itself out through consciousness as well. From the inner of the deeper level behind the agenda, which is it's a yid, and even though his engagement in Torah mitzvahs is all wrong, but Torah mitzvahs itself, its pnimius is the truth. The Eibishter, in the end, it's unrepressible or irrepressible, and will have to come out. It'll come out. The conduct of the Rabbi in spreading the well springs outside, they spread the wellspring in such a way that should come to every Jew. This was a big protest. They're taking a Jew off the street, you're putting on tefillin, it's sacrilegious, it's blasphemy, it's a what? It's an embarrassment to the tefillin. He eats treif, he's gonna eat treif. The answer is no. The mitzvah is bound up with atzmos and mohos, and even though it's taka a garment, but it unlocks, it's connected to the essence, even though he's doing it the most external way, but the pnimius is there, and will unlock his own neshama, and the rest is history. We see what happened. It's 1960, but since then we see the reality. And not only that, the mayonah should be given to every Jew. Chassidus, looking whatever state he's in, without making any conditions. Because the effect of the wellspring, by the wellspring he means the etzem that's found in Torah. The toich is b'chol mayim, with the matzah will work its way through no matter what's going on externally. No matter how external his performance of the mitzvah is, just to get the pesty bocher off his back who's asking why you Jewish put on film. But the mayon that's in the mitzvah, the essence, the moir is there, and he makes this essential connection, and moreover, it will work its way through consciousness. And in the end, the moir being connected to the essence, to the Eibishter, which he did in this Mishnah and in this mitzvah, and unlocked his etzem and neshama, it will bring to a fully conscious, resonant teshuvah. All right, so what's the summary? The summary is, it's not merely, no, we can't change the way we feel, we remain a behemoth, but at least act like a mensch. Do Torah mitzvahs, that's all that's expected. That's the avodah of the Beinani, and it's a concession. It's a concession. You can't feel a likus, at least behave, connect to behavioral level. No, it's more than a concession. The tachlis kavana is in action, and the connection and words and things that you're supposed to think about. And in so doing, one connects to the very mo'er, the very luminary, the Eibishter himself. And therefore your connection happens now in essence, even though your motivation in a conscious level is completely not present. And moreover, it will enhance you, make you a better person, meaning that self goes off, it will stir to refinement and to teshuvah even on the inner conscious level. And the end will all be tzaddikim in a literal sense, serving God not just behaviorally, but even with mind and heart, fully connected with every part of me. Clear? That's a summary of the mind.
So is it a direct line is when we do this arrange?
Yeah. The feet, the foot soldier, yeah. That lifts the whole body. Let's begin the next mimer.
Should I turn this off and start a new recording?
Huh?
Should I turn this off and start a new recording?
Yeah.
Turn it off and start a new recording. Okay.